everybody, and welcome to the Human Echoes Podcast, the show where we review oddball movies, have oddball discussions, and occasionally take questions from y'all, the oddball fans.
I'm Tony Southcott.
I'm Albert Berg, and the movie that we're talking about this week is a horror film out of Holland. Not many of those around, at least that we get our hands on.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've seen an actual movie from Holland before, much less one about windmills. This is called The Windmill from 2016, or known as The Windmill Massacre.
Really, if you're gonna make a horror movie from Holland, it either has to be about windmills or tulips. They've got Tulip Mania coming out with Alicia Vikander, so I guess they're probably not going to be a lot of people getting cut up in pieces in that movie, so...
Well, there was a famine there, and some people survived strictly by, eating tulips and stuff. I'm sure there was some cannibalism. There's got to be a story there of people getting chopped up.
Well, there's cannibalism in this movie, too. The plot to the windmill... Almost said the tulip, Tony. The plot to the windmill is essentially that there is a tour bus full of people. I'd say our protagonist is a girl named Jennifer, who's from Australia, but... Really, it's sort of a menagerie of characters, and they all get on this tour bus after we're introduced to them early on in the movie, and go out on this tour of Holland where they're going to see Holland's windmills. They break down in the middle of the road, in the middle of the countryside of Holland, which I guess is a big place. I'm used to there being giant wide open spaces in America, Tony, but I don't know how far roads go in Holland. It seems like kind of a small country.
Yeah, it's smaller than a lot of U.S. states, so it seems like it would be rather small. But I guess anytime you're talking 10, 15 miles in any direction, it would kind of suck to deal with. But it seems like there would be some people driving.
Possibly. Or maybe this guy built... Anyway, they go to this... There's a windmill right there where they stop, and it turns out to be haunted, and there's a slasher guy, and he starts killing people. And it's... Man, I've said this about movies before, Tony, but... This is the okayest movie that I've ever seen.
I definitely had some thoughts with that. I like the tagline to this one better than I like the movie, I think.
But this isn't hell, this is Holland.
Yes.
Which I didn't like it as a tagline. I will say, when the guy said it in the movie, then I liked it. He's like, this isn't hell, this is Holland. That was a fun delivery. Sticking that on your poster with no context was just sort of, well... Wait, what? Are you just saying it's not scary? Hell is a scary thing. And Holland is not. What?
Windmills are terrifying.
I guess. Yeah.
I feel like I would be the type that would think it was a good idea to check out a tour on windmills and then immediately regret it as soon as I got on the bus.
Why? Just because
Well,
it seems like it takes a long time to get to one windmill.
Yeah, and then you're sitting there and he's got just no charisma. He's and this is how the millstone grinds up wheat into a product like flour.
I would want to see him, but I mean, they go to two windmills on their tour, Tony, and one of them is inhabited by a man who mans the gateway to hell and grinds your bones into bread. So maybe not 5 stars on TripAdvisor for that one.
I mean, he's just trying to fortify the bread with calcium. Back in the day, it was harder for people to get calcium.
I will say, I didn't realize until I watched this movie that this was a common fear of people back in the day. And I read recently, I'm sorry, I didn't read it. I was listening to the No Such Thing as a Fish podcast, and they were talking about how much pressure bakers were back then, were under, because if you didn't bake the bread right, people would die, and that was the staple food item. So you better get it right. There were massive kill you penalties for doing baking wrong. And one of the fears that people had was that bakers were supplementing their flour with ground up human bones. And there's never any evidence that anybody ever did that, but it was one of those things glass in the apple or the candy or whatever that people get afraid of now that's never actually happened.
Yeah, it's just a societal meme that pops up.
Right. And so that pops up in this, and it was really cool to see them sort of drawing from that trope. And I'd never realized there's the fee-fi-fo from the fee-fi-fo foam rhyme. I can't say fee fi fo fum really fast. Where he says, I smell the blood of an Englishman, be he alive or be he dead. I'll grind his bones to make my bread. And all of those things clicked into my place for me watching this movie. That was maybe the most satisfying thing, is hearing about that meme and watching this movie and seeing it like take place is like, oh, he actually does make this pact with the devil. He is grinding up bones. There's no like twist here, by the way. Like, they say the guy made a pact with the devil and he legitimately did. And
yeah, he's basically immortal, burned up dude.
Yeah, there's not like some reveal that, I mean, maybe that's a spoiler. I'm
pretty sure it's in the trailer that they show him. It's pretty early on that you see the guy too.
Well, you have a crazy,
this is a slasher movie,
which we never see her being crazy. Like, we never really see a psychotic break because everybody else has these flashbacks too.
Yeah, everybody else is having hallucinations. Like, we just know that she's unstable because she has medication.
All of these people who are on this bus, as we find out, are there for not all of them, as it turns out, but most of them are sort of chosen to go to this windmill for a reason. They've all committed some sin in their past life that they are going to have to be faced by in this windmill, which is a cool idea, Tony. I like the sort of the general overview idea of this, but it felt just like 6 random strangers just happening to be, I mean, I know it's supernatural and stuff, but they don't have any connection to each other. They've just all done separate bad things that they're atoning for. And I think that the biggest failing of the story is that none of these people ever feel connected in any way.
I mean, I don't mind that they're not connected. Like, that's more like the whole, like, oh, we're going to the same summer camp and blah, 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 blah that you see in, like, a lot of slasher movies. Like, it was interesting to me that they had such a diverse set of stories. Like Takahashi, I think the guy's name was. Takashi. Like, he had a completely different thing than the other people, and it didn't seem like his sin was quite as bad. And then you've got Doug West, like the Marine who's out like before like I don't know if it was a bachelor party or what happens. Like,
his friends were just taking him out for a night on the town.
Yeah.
They've docked in the Netherlands, and we see this sort of set up at the beginning where they take him to see this prostitute and he's starting to have PTSD, and then we just cut to like the next day as he's running away. But yeah, it turns out that he killed this woman sort of on accident, really. It
definitely seemed that one was probably the weakest one for me. Like, just because it's like, I don't know how many like people are actually going to, just because they touch your blindfold, just reach out and snap somebody's neck. Like,
well, he had a lot of build up. Like, I think
he
was very much, again, you got the PTSD thing. He's in an unfamiliar situation with unfamiliar people. There's sounds
probably
around him.
Drunk off his ass.
Yeah. So he's I didn't feel like, oh wow, I don't believe this guy would have done that. I mean, it just
felt very abrupt for me.
Yeah.
Like, if you're talking about a guy who's a former Marine or just like is a Marine, I'm sure you could come up with some pretty cool backstory. But that's also more expensive if you're all of a sudden like, oh, this is something he did in Iraq.
Yeah. I'm being negative here. I want to point out this movie more or less looks fine. There's some cool kills here.
Yeah, there's some, like, if you enjoy the slasher, like, really juicy kill thing, there's about 3 that are definitely worth your time in this movie.
Yeah, and they're not all the same either. Like, I liked, I mean, some of them are, like, super gory, and then there's the one woman, like, staring into the pool of blood, like,
yeah, it's the full Narcissus thing. Like, it's even like the painting for Narcissus.
Yeah. There was a lot of interesting ideas here. It just, an overwhelming for me feeling of meh in the story. It wasn't that I hated it. I didn't think like, this is just the worst. Why did I watch this? I've wasted an hour and a half of my time. I just did absolutely nothing to me as a person. I've gained nor lost nothing from having watched this movie. And that's a weird place to be in.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the killer who ends up being the protagonist in so many slasher movies, because you're just having fun watching him do bad things to college students. Like, didn't have enough substance because he's not a talker. He's he's menacing on screen, but not in the same sense that Jason is. Like, it just wasn't quite enough. It felt like in different hands they might have been able to turn him into a pretty sinister killer. And you know that a movie like this, they're hoping that they get up to like Windmill 6. Like they're hoping to find that franchise.
Well, too, there was the fact that it just felt so... And I know that this is gonna be a formulaic type of thing, but every time somebody walked out and like, I'm gonna go off my own, you're like, well, they're gonna die. And like, in not even a, oh my goodness, don't kill her off, just, well, here's the next kill happening next. Okay, this person has left the room now. It was really,
I mean, sometimes they went out in pairs. It was just very, very predictable. There was like one major twist that I didn't see coming in this, and I can't get into it because of spoilers.
Yeah, I won't get into that one either, and that's fine. That twist was okay, I guess, and it came at a moment where, like, you thought things were going to go one way, and it was cool to see them go the other way, but...
I remember I was sending a friend a few texts about this last night because I was a little bit out of it. I was a little bit tired whenever I was watching it. And I was like, I think a crow just knocked an entire tour bus into a lake while a man was eating a sandwich and a magic windmill appeared out of nowhere. Like it just got bizarre in my head for a little bit trying to figure out this movie.
Yeah, I don't think it was a crow that knocked the school bus in.
It happened when a crow happened to hit the side of the bus, so it looked like the crow knocked the entire bus into the pond.
Fair enough. The thing that I really did dislike about this, everything else was just okay. Oh, by the way, speaking of things that could have been really great and just ended up being meh, the kid with the clotting disorder. Like, what a cool idea. You don't see that a lot, but it is a common enough thing that you can sort of play on screen, and he's losing blood steadily throughout the movie. Okay, cool. It just didn't have any weight.
Yeah, it didn't pay off.
Yeah, but the thing that I did hate, and this is something, and this might be considered a minor spoiler for this movie, but I am so sick and tired of the horror movie ending with the gotcha moments. Okay? It's just... you gotta earn that, okay? And the gotcha moment in this movie goes against the rules of what they set up for the windmill. I don't want to go into more specifics, but if the person, like every single person they show getting killed lacked remorse for their crime. The only way that the windmill guy could get you is if you admitted that you committed the crime, but tried to justify it in some way and said, oh, it's not a big deal, or, why would you say that about me, or something like that.
I don't know. I think Takashi had remorse.
I don't want to get into spoilers with that, Tony, but he still followed the rules.
Yeah, that's true.
What I'm saying here, the way it ultimately ending up, I think that the character that we saw get killed at the end had made a very visible and clear choice to try to make amends for what they had done. And for what their crime was. They did the different thing when they were given the opportunity to the second time. And I think in that character should have been immune to the windmill's stuff. Other things,
I felt like there was probably an alternate ending to this where that was the case, and they just decided to go with the meteor ending.
Maybe. It's disappointing. That was disappointing to me. I don't know why we have to always snatch the win out of the protagonist's hands every time with these films. Like, we've gone back and said it over and over and over again, but Fede Alvarez's Evil Dead is great because it's legitimately horrifying, and you get to the end and you, let the people win. Yeah.
And the thing about that one is, they won, but they had to give up a lot to win. I would much rather see somebody have to, earn a very, very hard victory than just have it snatched away arbitrarily.
Yeah. By the way, I kept expecting, you talked about reveals. The one reveal that didn't come in this movie, I kept expecting the kid to be revealed to have done something, really bad.
Yeah, I did too. I kept thinking, they kept setting up. It's what was your sin in all this? And I just, I kept wondering if he had, poisoned somebody or done something just absolutely insane or pulled,
He's
some
just
horrible thing.
I just would love it if he was just, another, a serial killer. who ends up stalking them back. He's just like, I've killed like 15 people. Amateur hour over here with his windmill.
Like, you just see like little like flashbacks of him like torturing animals and becoming a serial killer. And then he like takes over the whole windmill experience. He's just like, oh, I guess I can follow this up.
Now that's an ending I would have liked to see. That's not the ending of the movie. Again, that's kind of a spoiler. We've been a little bit spoilery with this. I don't think this is one that certainly not one you need to watch for the story.
It's got a 23% from people on Rotten Tomatoes and like a 13% from critics. It's a little higher on IMDb. It's about a 5, but it's still not the most highly rated movie.
Yeah,
it is on Netflix though, if you guys are interested.
I'm more on board with IMDb than the Rotten Tomatoes one. 13% is. I mean, I guess I would give it a thumbs down because
if you had to pick like the binary style, like the up or down.
I would have expected, especially with like everyday people, I would have expected more people to enjoy the slasher aspect. But here we go.
This movie reminded me so much of Dead by Daylight.
Oh, yeah?
I don't know if you've actually...
I haven't played that one.
I've been doing like Wednesday Let's Plays of it, or not like Let's Plays, streams. And so much of it was just familiar because you're in the woods at various different places. You've got a slasher that he even looked a lot like one of the slashers, like who has like a giant weapon. You hit people once, they get away, then you go after them again. You pick them up, throw them over your shoulder like he did repeatedly, and carry them off to put them on a hook.
Which he does.
Yes. If I'm not sure I'm going to be doing it this Wednesday, but that game is straight up like they could have modeled this killer off of Dead by Daylight. I'm pretty sure Dead by Daylight came first. That was like 2015 when that came out.
I do think you're right, though. You said earlier that if they'd made the protagonist, the slasher more of a protagonist in this, that it would be a little more satisfying. I think that's true. I mean, they do some cool stuff with the set, like the windmill and the interior. That all looks great. I don't know if they built that old windmill or if it was just hanging out and, you know, they were able to shoot inside of it or what, but the set design here is pretty cool. And then the house that they also stay in while they're waiting to go to be killed at the windmill was kind of neat. And there was things like, there's stuff on in the house that pertains to the people that they didn't do very much with. Like there was the one radio that the girl hears that sort of flashes her back to the radio that was playing when she killed her dad. But it's like, is this a whole house just full of stuff for these sinners to find that'll trigger their flashbacks or what?
Or you get like the whole cabin in the woods effect. You have to transgress.
Possibly. Well, they had already transgressed.
That's true.
Which is another thing. There's no mystery here. Like, as they're setting this up, I mentioned sort of in passing that you meet all these people coming into this, but I mean, you don't know the specifics of what these guys have done, but by the time they're all on the bus, you're like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure these guys are all going to be atoning for something. Like, she's obviously running away from something. Her opening scene is her as a babysitter, and she has a fake passport or something, and she's running away from the police. That's how she ends up on the bus. You know, you have the guy going into the brothel, and you don't get the specifics, but he's running from something, and you figure he probably did something back there. The dude and his son are, like, even if before you know what the guy has done that's real bad, he's acting like kind of a douche. You know, you think... Maybe your wife is right to try to take you away from your son because you're not even paying attention to him. Like, you went to such great lengths to be on this trip with him and have this, like, cool experience to be with your son, and you're like, I've got a lot of phone calls to take. Can't hang out with you too much, son. What is your deal?
Was that the Anne Frank house? It's like, I don't care. The storyline for this kind of reminded me of the Predators movie from 2010. I don't know if you saw that one.
I did not. I'm kind of interested in it, but no.
Well, it kind of has the whole thing like all these people are brought here because they've done terrible things. They want to be hunted by these by predators because they're looking for like apex like humans to hunt down. Oh,
so they're like people who have killed a lot.
Yeah, they're mercenaries, they're serial killers, they're soldiers, they're all sorts of things like that. And the predators want to have like bigger game, and it just kind of reminded me like bring all these people to one spot and throw them out there and see what happens. It's not quite the same, but it had echoes of that for me.
It's such a bummer because I think that with like one or two great performances or like a few different changes to the plot, this could have been something really cool. Like if even one of the characters had really stood out to me and been like, man, I'm really on board with that guy. I might have liked it a little bit more, but it all just kind of mushed together and did nothing for me. Don't watch this. I mean, you can if you want to, I guess, but I would not recommend this. There are better slasher films. You know, even like as bad. I had some problems with the first Friday the 13th movie, but I would rather be going back and watching that again than watch this again. Just for the blandness of this. There was some stuff I didn't like in Friday the 13th, but I'd rather have taste that's bad than no taste at all.
Yeah. Well, there were some things that just almost hit too. Like, I really like whenever you see like the tableau of like the thing that the reason why they're there, like the doctor character specifically, like where you see all that in the middle of the woods and he's trying to rationalize his actions and all this other stuff. Like, I liked some of that stuff, but it's like you said, it just fell flat, and I can't exactly tell why.
Well, yeah, and it didn't stitch together well. Like, that was a great, especially that set piece, the way, you know, the gurney out in the middle of the woods and the woman like in beseeching him as, you know, apparently he has botched some kind of operation because he was doing drugs or alcohol or whatever. Like, that's a great setup, but I'd never cared about him or anything around him. Like, he was just kind of a skeezy dude the whole time, and then you're like, oh, also you did skeezy things. Great. Like, skeezy, not like in a perv kind of way, just he just was off-putting. So you gotta make us care a little bit. Like, at least with the Friday the 13th movies, it's like, hey, here's some sexy teenagers. You've seen their boobs. Now watch them die. You don't even get that with this.
Yeah, you don't. You don't get any like eye candy in this. Like, a little bit from the prostitutes at the beginning, but there is no nudity.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not asking for nudity. I'm not sitting here like, man, this movie would have been so much greater with nudity. But I'm saying,
well, I mean, if you've got the R rating, like, usually they should like indulge the tiniest bit.
They do have some cool gore. Okay, they indulged in that, but it wasn't enough, and that's disappointing.
Yeah. I'm not sure I've got any other closing thoughts on this. I feel like we're getting to, like, it's just so mad that we can't do the full,
we talked
like,
for 20 minutes about it, Tony.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if we need to go belabor it too much longer. But, look at this. Okay, the director of this, I'm just clicked on him on IMDb, was a producer on Frankenstein's Army.
Yep.
Which thing I did love.
That was a great movie, like, especially for its budget and everything. That's some of the better monsters and just random everything that I've seen in a movie. I need to go back and check that one out.
I want to watch that again as well. Man, do I love Frankenstein's Army. I'm looking at just the poster of that with the mosquito guy and the giant stilts. Oh.
I just remember the scene where the mosquito guy like drops in from the ceiling and everything. Oh, that was good.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, but yes, I think that we'll wrap it up with what we have to say about the Windmill or the Windmill Massacre, depending on where you're at and what it's called. I think that it's enough of a near miss where, give it another try. I would like to see if this director can do any better the second time around, get a better script to work with. Yeah. Because again, like visually, it's not amazing, but it's fine. It looks
interesting.
Good.
Yeah. It's also a different setting than we're used to seeing for a slasher movie. So
yeah, and that was so close, especially. So we were wrapping up, and I'm thinking more things to say, but it is such a disappointment because we're getting a different mythology than we're used to here in America, right? This idea of the windmills being an integral part of Holland's history is a cool thing, and this sort of whole baker making a deal with the devil and the idea of baking being such a big deal back then, and the idea of his windmill turning all the time, like all of that backstory is interesting and new enough where doesn't remind me too much of anything else that I've seen. I mean, I'm trying to think of slasher movies where the guy actually had made a deal with the devil. I'm not coming up with anything. It was cool to have.
I'm sure they're out there, but I can't think of any offhand.
Well, it's a very
maybe Chucky
on the nose Christian mythology kind of thing too, where repentance is a big deal. In this, and again, the literal devil guarding the literal gates to hell at this windmill. So that's all fine. It just, they didn't do enough with it. Disappointing, Tony. Disappointing.
Yep. I remember you were pretty excited about it last week. You were like, oh, there's this Windmill movie.
I mean, listen, I hadn't watched it yet. I saw the trailer. The trailer looked cool.
Yeah.
It looked like there were some cool kills, and there were, and it looked nice, and there were, and you don't know until you watch it.
Yep. And we watch a lot of the low-budget horror out there, so occasionally you're going to have a miss.
Speaking of low-budget horror, Tony, let's go into trailer talk for this week.
Trailer talk.
Trailer talk. Yeah. As I said, speaking of low-budget horror, we've already covered a trailer for this movie, Tony, but it was a much less informative trailer than the one we have that came out.
It didn't give plot details. It gave flavor.
Yes. We're talking about It Comes at Night, which is the new A24 joint coming out relatively soon to, I'm sure, a small smattering of theaters and then to a VOD near you.
I hope it's at my place.
It might, you know what? It might come. It might get a relatively wide release. A24. I mean, I got to go see Swiss Army Man and The Witch. They weren't at the theater like real close to me, but it wasn't like many hours drive. It was like half an hour into the big Pensacola city.
The newest one's gonna get a bigger release this week.
What is it?
I'm trying to remember the name. It's it's not a heist movie. It's like it's an arms deal that goes wrong.
Dag nabbit with the.
I can tell somebody's following over on the Beam stream there.
Gotta mute my TV before we start streaming, Tony. I did it. That has a problem on Better Call Saul as well. Are you talking about
Free Fire?
Earlier?
Yeah, Free Fire.
Okay.
That actually came out last week.
Yes. I would have reviewed that if I'd known that was coming out, Tony. My local, the theater that I can drive to that has cool movies. It isn't like the Podunk Theater here in town. Not that it's just like bigger budget. You know, they've only got 8 screens, so they very picky with what they put out. But the larger screen theater in Pensacola had that movie, and I would have reviewed it instead of The Circle. They didn't put it on their schedule until like the day that they were going to be airing it. And I didn't realize. I like to plan ahead, you know, and I'm clicking on their website looking, and it's like, Thursday, we're not doing anything. Maybe we're closed. Maybe we're not. Check back late Thursday evening, and we'll tell you what we're showing late Thursday evening. No, that's not how my life rolls. I got to know. Anyway, so I didn't get to see Free Fire.
That would definitely seems more your style than The Circle.
Oh, man, The Circle.
The Circle thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs down, thumbs down, thumbs down. Especially the first half. Like, the second half is just sort of an okay movie, but the first half is so bad. I don't. There are some actors in there. Like the main cast is fine, but they are surrounded by people that are making bad choices in their acting world. There's a boyfriend character, like a guy who's interested in the main Emma Watson character, right? Not Emma Watson. Is it? Yeah, it is Emma Watson. Yes.
Yes.
Bella from Beauty and the Beast. Anyway, and also Harry Potter.
Hermione. Yeah.
The guy who's
Emma Watson.
The guy who's interested in her gives one of the worst performances I've ever seen in a major motion picture. Like, this is Asylum movie level bad performance that he puts on, and it stuck out real bad. And I mean, it wasn't just him. There was some others that were like kind of clunky. He was the worst of them, but it was so embarrassing to have Emma Watson and John Boyega and forgetting the big guy's name.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, yes.
As well as one of the last movies with Bill Paxton.
Yeah, I think maybe the last one to be released theatrically, and not a great. I mean, he has a great legacy still, guys. But this was not. If you're gonna go out on something, this was not what you wanted to go out on. He did fine, but it was just.
I'm just gonna leave it that he went out on Live, Die, Repeat because he was a lot of fun in that one.
What is that? What is the thing he says? Baptized in the glorious light of battle or something. Anyway.
It's a little more enthusiastic than Al was.
We were talking about It Comes at Night before everything derailed for us. And the trailer that we get this week is a lot more story-oriented. And I read, if you didn't get enough from the trailer, I also have read some descriptions as well. It Comes at Night apparently takes place in the sort of future after some kind of apocalypse has taken place, and there's a viral...
Seems to be a plague, yeah.
Yeah, some kind of plague type thing happening, and these people live inside this house. They go out only during the day and only wearing gas masks. And the plot, the teaser here and the plot that I've read shows them finding this other family that's still alive in this and inviting them into their home and we don't get any details about what happens at night, what the It Comes at Night is or anything, but you can tell that the majority of this movie is about this building tension and paranoia between these two families that are the one family that's been there for a while and the new family, and the new family's maybe going to have to get used to these rules and having frictions of tension and personality up against each other. And that once you know that it's a plague and that there's something at night, like that moment when the guy finds the red door open in the middle of the night is all the more terrifying, because you're like, what got in? Like, what is the thing that got in?
It's like, how did it unlock the door? Where is it? What happened? Like,
yeah.
Whole list of terrifying questions.
Did somebody let it in from the inside? So it looks like it's going to be, obviously a genre type movie, but based around these very human types of things, which is to call back to a movie that I liked more than I thought I was going to like. The Belko Experiment had a lot of really great human moments, and sort of inspired by a crazy over the top thing. You saw a lot of really great humanity playing out in good and bad ways. And I think that we're going to get some of that on just a smaller scale here. It reminds me a little bit of 10 Cloverfield Lane as well. Not with the same exact type of thing, but there's that feel of we're inside and the bad thing is outside, but maybe the bad thing is inside too.
Yeah, it's going to be like it's going to get very claustrophobic, I feel.
But yeah, that house does not look very big in any of the shots that we've shown, and taking in a whole additional family is going to add, just real life, like food stresses and how much do we need more water now, and where does everybody sleep? And yeah, it might not have been such a good thing to be a good Samaritan to these guys in the end. Let's move on. What?
As far with a lot of these A24 releases, you're kind of ambiguous to what you're actually going to get. It's like they're very hit or miss for me. Like, I enjoyed The Witch, and there's been a few other ones that I haven't enjoyed, but this one I think is good. Like, it looks original enough. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, and I actually really like Joel Edgerton as an actor too. Like, he was good in The Gift. He was good in a lot of the different stuff that he's been in recently.
Oh yeah, he's a great character actor. He's excellent. And does a lot of great work in these sort of smaller movies where you need a character, to come through, where you need that strength of a performance.
Did you know that he also wrote The Rover?
I did not.
Yeah, so talented guy. That's a movie that I've come back and thought of a lot, like Guy Pearce and Robert Pattinson of all people in an Australian post-apocalypse movie. That was a really good one. We reviewed that probably 100 episodes ago.
Was it that long? It can't have been that long ago.
It came out in 2014, so it's been a while.
Fair enough. That's another one where it's sort of driven. It's a fanciful world, right? Like it's not it's a future apocalypse thing, but it feels like it's driven by some very real concerns with transportation and the limits of what you're able to do in this type of apocalypse scenario. Good movie, although I must admit I can't remember all the details of it at this point. I remember Robert Pattinson giving a great performance as this kind of mentally not super slow, but just a little bit off kind of guy.
He's a little stunted, like maybe some CTE or something like that. Like, it's hard to tell.
Yeah. Next up on our roster for today is Cars 3. A new trailer finally gives us another one finally giving us details about the plot after we've had I think a couple teasers for this one anyway, that were just sort of tone related. And this is, I was okay with the first one. It was very confusing. The one where there's just like Lightning McQueen crashes and it's like, everything will change.
Everything's washed out and crazy.
But here we finally get details on what the plot of this thing is going to be. And I gotta say, I am a defender of the first Cars movie to anybody who will listen. The second one I hated.
Do you have to honestly defend it that much? Like, most of the people I know that saw Cars liked Cars. Not the same with the sequel, but a lot of them did.
I just hear so much negativity about the franchise as a whole, and people are like, oh, that first one was... Maybe people haven't watched it and they're just going off the reputation and what they think Cars is. Maybe that's the case, but I do hear a lot of negativity about just Cars in general, and like, oh, it's all a merch grab, which it is. I'm not arguing that at all.
It's like it can be both.
But it is
Like,
sort
in
of...
the end, it comes out just like a normal sports movie.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what
so
it
is Star
feels
Wars,
like.
right? You know?
Yeah.
And George Lucas from the beginning was like, get me those merchandise rights and you can have whatever distribution stuff you want.
Well, was it Fox that was just signed it away, like didn't care at all about the merch rights?
Well, to be fair, at the time, nobody was doing merch like that. Like, you might sell some lunchbox with, the Gunsmoke guys on it or whatever, but basically...
Or like a Flash Gordon action figure, maybe something like that.
Maybe, right. There wasn't that kind of crossover. George Lucas knew, like, had enough foresight to either know it was going to be a thing or know he could make it into a thing. But Cars 3, as we're meandering around talking about this one,
it's like the old days of the podcast. We couldn't stay on topic.
That's fine. We don't have a lot of topics today anyway, Tony, so meandering's good. It does delve into a lot more of, like, what... It seems like this is the first Cars movie that's actually about racing, but also, by proxy, about sort of aging out of a sport, right? Like, this idea of... And I don't know how this works for cars. I guess they wear out, right? Just like people. But Lightning McQueen...
Or like new models come along that are faster, stronger, etc.
Yeah, and there are electric cars in this one, which is the bad guy in here.
Spark or whatever.
It's not Spark. It's another... It is sort of
Shock.
like a lightning riff. I forget what it was, though, now. But Lightning McQueen is getting old, and he's been losing races. Not all of the races. He's still, as we find out, the biggest name in sports, but he's starting to sort of tarnish his reputation. And the one interesting thing, and this is something I've stolen from someone who mentioned this on Reddit, this feels like Pixar kind of making a very introspective film about, like, what happens when you put out a bomb, right? Because they've had a few where Pixar puts out, like, The Good Dinosaur, which is not a bomb, but it wasn't great. Or Cars 2 that people kind of hated. Or, Brave that people sort of like, what was that? It's sort of just mediocre. And they're,
Or like Ratatouille.
Hey, what? No.
Ratatouille was pretty bad.
No, it wasn't. Shut up.
It was very dull.
Okay.
I liked parts of it, but it was just like, I was like, come on, man, you can't control a dude by pulling his hair. It's just a weird premise.
Also, rats can't talk, Tony.
Yeah, but like I could deal with the rats talking, but it was just weird that he all of a sudden had full control over a cook by pulling his hair.
I guess the rats don't talk to people.
Like, it could have gone more gruesome. They could have like had him burrow into his skull and like pushing on parts of his brain. That would have been better.
Tony, we do need to see that now, actually. The version of Ratatouille where the kid has had a massive brain injury and he's got a skull cap thing to cover his brain, and the rat pops it off and, like, sticks some electrodes on there and pushes buttons.
Yes.
It's like a Pinky in the Brain sketch. Anyway, the idea... There was a time when Pixar could do no wrong, where they hadn't ever had, like, man, that one sucks. And then they finally started slipping and having some, releases that people were less than okay with.
Yeah, it's not like they keep having missteps either. It's like in that same time period they put out WALL-E and Inside Out and various others, but it is interesting to see them fall a little bit.
And so you have Lightning sort of as a meta narrative here, falling in as this proxy for Pixar and trying to pick himself back up. And it's cool that they've chosen this franchise to do that with, right? I like Cars 1, I didn't like Cars 2, but it's easily their most ridiculable franchise. And for them to pick this and say, this is where we're going to make our stand and make a movie about failing and coming back and doing the right thing again. We did it with Cars 2. We absolutely fell off the track on that one. We're going to correct the ship, and we're going to correct it with the franchise that all y'all hate. Suck on that, haters. Have some haterade. It's Lightning McQueen flavored.
It's interesting also that like the entire thing they're talking about with his legacy is all related to merch. It's like people are people don't really want to see you do anything anymore. They want to remember who you were, not who you are.
Yeah.
You actually see that a lot in fighting. Like in the UFC, you see a lot of guys that are they're trying to build up a legacy and they're taking fights that they probably shouldn't, and they're just trying to put it back together, but their body just can't compete anymore. It's just they're too washed up. And then like the smart ones are the ones that start going into the broadcasting side of things, the ones that actually try to build something up afterwards. But so many of them just can't, and they just fade away.
The other character's name is Jackson Storm, by the way.
Voiced by Armie Hammer.
Yes, and that is his real name.
Oh, his real name's Armand, but I
Still.
would go by Armie as well.
Yes.
I honestly thought it was just a straight-up stage name whenever I first heard it. I didn't know that Armand Hammer was like some
Wait. His real name is Armand Hammer?
Mm-hmm. Armand. Yeah, Armand.
Like arm and hammer?
Yep. I'm surprised they haven't put him in all those commercials.
I have... That can't be true. I will believe that his name is Armie Hammer.
The great-grandson of the famous 20th century oil tycoon Armand Hammer. Armie Hammer Jr. seen
Oh, they were rich before he was... Okay. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Rich people do dumb things because they're rich.
I'm going to name my kid Apple.
I mean, they've got nothing else going on in their lives. They might as well relieve the boredom with something. But yeah, that makes... Okay. I'll buy it if his parents were stupid rich.
Yeah, anytime you see the words oil tycoon, you know something's going to be up.
I do, but anyway, I think that this looks great. I think it's cool to finally be sort of imagining this franchise as a sports movie. People have likened it to Rocky Balboa, which I haven't seen, but I know it's sort of a big, like, older guy comes back kind of story. There's the driving on the beach stuff, I think, is going to be really cool. And I'm looking forward to, there's the setup of, okay, you're not faster than, like, he just can't be faster than Jackson Storm. Jackson Storm is physically faster, but he has to beat him by outthinking him. And I love that idea in any kind of movie. So I'm looking forward to Cars 3. I will be there. I'll probably take AJ. I think it'll be cool to watch it with him. And I think it's going to be cool.
Plus, then you're not like the person that everybody judges for being at a Pixar movie by yourself.
It doesn't matter to me, Tony.
Like I
go to movies by myself all the time.
I don't care about it, but it is weird. Like I'm trying to remember. I think it was Inside Out I went to, and it was just like I kept hearing it was awesome, so I went alone, and like just everybody gives you weird looks. It's like I'm literally sitting in the back of the theater away from people. Like, why?
Well, that's your problem. That's the thing. If you look like you're trying to be inconspicuous, no, you got to sit there like right up on the front, not on the front row.
Just go and like sit to next to some young mom and be like, hey.
No, just get there early enough where there are empty, which is hard to do in a kid's movie, I'll admit. But just plunk yourself down in a good seat and make them walk around you. Be like, oh, I have to get up for your kids again, ma'am? I'm trying to watch a movie here. Leave those babies at home.
That reminds me of that article I posted where they're putting like a funplex thing, like something you'd see at McDonald's, like play place or whatever, inside of a movie theater, and it just seems like the worst idea I've ever heard.
I mean, the kids are going to be there. I guess if they have somewhere to go while you're... The thing is, I've seen parents like drop their kids off and just leave them at the movie theater, like 10, 11, 12-year-old kids or even younger. And that doesn't seem like a good idea to me. But I'm not the parent of those children, and maybe by the time I have a 10 or 11, 12-year-old, I'll be cool with it. Maybe
my parents did that from the time I was like 8 or 9 onward.
Yeah, it might have been 8 or 9-year-olds. It's just, I don't want to, like, there's nobody to deal with then. If they're, like, acting up and yelling and whatever, which I haven't really seen, so this is hypothetical. I was saying, if I want to talk to somebody, be like, hey, could your kid be quiet? They're, like, possibly in a completely different building. No, I don't want that. You be there with your kid.
Yeah, I understand that. Like, we were basically told if they ever heard of anything going south or us being disruptive, we would completely lose the ability to go to movies, and that they weren't going to go to movies with us. We just wouldn't be able to go to the theater. So we just kept our mouths shut and watched the movie. I remember once they wouldn't let me use the phone to call and tell her that I was ready, so I like sat at the movie theater in the lobby for like 4.5 hours waiting for a ride home.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I was like, well, Mom, you knew it was like a 90-minute movie. You could have come before then. But
I thought you were having fun with your friends.
Yeah. I could have just gone and seen like another 2 movies. That was like my 6th viewing of Independence Day in theaters.
Well, Tony, unfortunately, the time has come for our final trailer.
The Emoji Movie Part 2.
No, it's not the Emoji Movie.
I know it's not, but it felt like it. That's what I thought you sent me a trailer for. I was like, oh, God, why is there more Emoji Movie stuff? And then it wasn't, and it was worse.
It was worse. Right, the Emoji Movie is at least sort of self-referential, like, we made a bad movie. Here's a bad trailer for the movie that we made. You don't have to watch it if you don't feel like it.
It's like, we're just hoping to break even.
But this is not a movie that is with emojis. I want to point out there's a real trailer for this movie. I don't think you've seen it, Tony.
I saw that it was queued up after this one, and I was like, no, you don't get my click. You guys do not get to have me go to this next one because that was so goddamn stupid. I refuse to see what this movie's about.
Well, so this is the Everything emoji trailer. Everything is a film to cue you guys in. They do explain this in the emoji trailer, but it's so infuriating that you might not have noticed. It's about a girl who has some kind of a condition, possibly. It's also possible her mom's like super overbearing or whatever.
Yeah, it could be the bubble boy thing.
Yes, but that she can't go outside, and then she meets a boy, and he makes her feel special, and she's like, I want to live. I want to experience life with you. And then she goes outside and probably dies. Okay? That's the Everything trailer. And I gotta say, Tony, I didn't hate the trailer when I saw it. It seemed like, sort of teeny bopper crap, but it was teeny bopper crap that felt okay. I thought that the idea was interesting. We'll have to see. I mean, I'm not going to see how the execution is. I'm probably not going to go see this movie, but I could believe that this movie could be pretty good. But this week, they dropped another trailer. With no footage from the movie whatsoever. They tell the entire story, the premise of the movie anyway, using nothing but emojis.
And a few quotes.
Yeah, I mean, they have words printed out on the page, on the screen too. But it's just...
It's a text message romance. We're trying to appeal to the young peoples.
No! Like, what young person is going to see that? Like, oh, they get me. They have emojis in their trailer. I use emojis. I gotta go see this movie.
It's like, that totally reminds me of the first time I fell in love because he sent me the right emojis at the right time. It's like that old picture that used to be up. It's like, I sent that bitch a smiley. Bitches love smileys.
I've not seen that one, but that's very funny. It's like the worst possible marketing decision. Who is this for? I can tell you who it's not. It's not for the, like, there was 1,000 upvotes on this and 8,000 downvotes. So you're losing viewers. Like, I watched the first trailer for this and I thought, this is okay. I mean, it's not really for me, but I wasn't hating the movie. By the time I finished with this movie, this trailer, I despise these people and everything they stand for.
It's just a bad marketing decision. It's probably something that's completely innocuous and doesn't matter, but it's just... I could not stand this trailer. Like, you sent me there better be steam coming out of your ears for this. And in the moment, there definitely was. I had a little bit of time to digest it and be like, I'm a 30-year-old white dude. This movie is not made for me. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And then I just still am pissed off about it, but just not quite as much.
Well, so real question, though. Do you think that the people who it is made for, the sort of teen romance girls, all right, because it is a teen romance kind of, not Twilight, but sort of for that demographic, people who need a little bit more love in their lives and maybe want like a cool drama, the little hook with the girl can't go outside, but he makes her go outside because he's so great and handsome, and then she dies. Or not. I don't know. I'm just saying it'd be great if he ends up killing her, but she got to live first, Tony. Don't you understand?
I think a lot of people from that age group are going to think that this is pandering and that they really don't understand that, like, yeah, they use emojis, they talk on the phone, but that's not, like... I just don't think it's going to hit well. I think it's a bunch of, like, older marketing people trying to figure out a different way to pitch a movie, and it just fell flat. And I don't think people are going to like it. Like, what was the ratio of likes to dislikes you said? There was
8 to 1 that I saw.
Yeah.
It wasn't a huge number. I'm sure there are trailers with more number of dislikes, but the ratio was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad.
It's like if I were the film company and I saw that sort of ratio, it's like, do you leave it up because people are going to be talking about it, or do you just pull it and hope that they forget?
I mean, you can't, like, nothing goes away on the internet. You might as well, like, you made the decision, just live with it.
Yeah.
You know, here's what though, for real, I'm actually looking forward now to the Deadpool emoji trailer. Deadpool 2. That's going to be awesome.
I could definitely see that coming out. And also, like, there are better movies for this sort of thing. Like, Edge of 17 was actually a lot of fun. So, go see that instead.
I need to see that. I've heard really great things about Edge of 17, Tony, and I haven't gotten around to it.
Yeah, it was able to break through my cold, dead heart, so.
Yeah, well, they get you with the swearing, right? Tony's like, oh, this girl's using foul language. I'll go watch that. It'll be pretty funny.
I don't care about, like, swearing. Like, that doesn't make a movie better or not. And, like, the only time it, like, makes things better is whenever it feels authentic. Otherwise, it just feels like they're peppered in there just because. Like, I'm not going to go see a movie because a teenage girl says fuck.
Well, no, I wasn't implying that that's the only thing, but I mean, the R rating is, I think this everything movie is going to be like maybe PG-13. It's not like, you're probably not going to go see the teeny bopper romance. You might go see the hard hitting comedy that also includes like, here, it's real enough to be a teen, guys.
Yeah. And Edge of 17, I didn't even realize it was rated R, but they were able to push more limits than like the average teen comedy could because of that, without it being like the stupid not another teen movie type. Like it felt more authentic and felt more sincere.
I did want to ask you, you mentioned before we started recording that you have a new piece of musical equipment.
Yes.
And I thought you might want to tell the people about that.
If I could fit it into frame easily without like hitting everything, I would right now. It's a PSR 270 Yamaha keyboard, and basically I've talked about it before. The entire reason why I haven't done anything with music is because of my 5th and 6th grade music teacher. She ruined music for me for many, many, many years.
Oh, we got to talk about that in a little bit, but go ahead.
And like, I've always wanted to be able to play an instrument, and I just figured as far as like I'm fairly dexterous with my hands and everything, so I felt that piano would be more fun. And like, whenever I'm doing guitar stuff, like, you can do a lot of cool stuff with the guitar, but I just felt like piano more felt like what I wanted to play. And it's also the idea that I've kind of wanted to have something that during streams, like if there's a loading screen or somebody drops a tip or something like that, I'd like to be able to just play something and have some fun with it. So, like, I decided I was going to actually learn piano. So this is the first time I'm trying to pick up an instrument. And I'm trying to find out what's the best way to learn online and, like, all that. Like, I'm looking at Linda courses. I've got a tab open for right now. And there's a bunch of different courses that actually, like, you plug your microphone in, it listens for it, tells you, like, how accurate you're being. You go Guitar Hero with it, just trying to play this music. And, like, it's just kind of an exciting thing. I had to commit like a little bit more cash than I wanted to for it, so I feel like the imperative's on me to just like get on it and start learning.
Does this hook up to your keyboard? So like if you want to do not MIDI stuff, but like play through to use other instruments, you can do that, or is that
it's got like 30 different instruments built into it, and it does have a MIDI to USB cable, so I can, like, say if I wanted to do something for our Dungeons & Dragons, like I could put like some interesting background noise, because they've got a lot of different sound effects that would actually work pretty well for something like that. So like you could do a lot of composing with this sort of thing.
That sounds cool. I've looked into just like a USB keyboard that hooks up to my computer, but they're kind of expensive and I don't have any money, so...
Yeah, they're all MIDI controllers too, it seems like, which is a little bit different. Which I think it would be awesome to have something like that, especially if you plug it into, like, to have, like, some good custom sound effects while you're doing your thing. Like, it could be great, but it's also... it's a time investment just learning how to use it properly, and a financial investment, because the minimum you're looking at for that is, like, $60, but more like $150 to get, like, a decent one.
I really enjoy watching this channel, the 8-Bit Guy, and he has an alternate channel, 8-Bit Keys, and a lot of the stuff he talks about on there is sort of retro music that was made, you know, like your sort of electronic type music from the 80s, and it's sort of turned me on to the possibilities of that kind of music, where, I mean, MIDI is a little bit more flexible than I thought it was in the past, where you can do things with square waves and triangle shaped waves and stuff that as you manipulate them, they can sound actually really interesting and different. And it's neat to see some of those old tools and how that the way they did stuff back then, just because they couldn't do it any differently. And they were trying to make it as realistic as possible, but they had those limitations. How that those create these interesting sounds that have now become really iconic and they can be reproduced, but there's something about the way those tools create the sound that isn't the same. Now that we've gotten really, really good at, making a piano sound or having pre-recorded instruments inside the synthesizer, it's not as, it doesn't have that same quality anymore.
That was actually one of my main concerns whenever I just started kind of plunking around on this. I was like, this kind of sounds like a real piano. And then the lady's like, step aside for a second. And then she started playing, and it was like, oh, I'm just bad. And you actually know what chords are and things like that. I have so much to learn. It's going to be ridiculous. Like, I'm excited to start the learning process, and it's like, I kind of did this because I haven't spent a lot of time writing outside of the D&D campaign and all this other stuff, and it's kind of a different creative outlet, one that I feel like I could just kind of sink into in a different way. So, I don't know, there's a lot of reasons why I did this, and it's kind of crazy. And like you said, I was worried that the sound wasn't going to be like a real piano. It didn't have like the resistance keys. Like they had some other ones like that were around, and like I wanted one of those, but it's just so huge and it just takes up too much space. This one takes up a lot of space, but that one actually had like a built-in like legs and everything, so you couldn't just set it somewhere easily. I wouldn't be able to put it on my desk.
Well, we're running low on time, Tony, but I do want to hear the story of the music appreciation teacher that ruined your appreciation of music. Or was it not appreciation? Was it just
It was just a music class. Like, we did a lot of different stuff where, like, some days we'd be playing sticks or recorders. Some days we'd be listening to classical music and identifying different composition. We learned to read music, all that sort of stuff. So we did a lot with that. And, like, first off, she just always, like, I got a little bit of attitude with her because she always had attitude with me, and the thing that really broke me from it was whenever she canceled gym class for 6 weeks for us to practice Treasure Island the musical. And I was the tallest kid in the class, so I was the kid that was at the very top of the risers, like dead center. And I straight up, for 6 weeks, stood with my arms crossed, not singing, staring her straight in the face.
That sounds like Tony.
I went to the, I did the, her big musical night where she just, she pulled me aside and begged me to just sing. And I was like, how about this? Tell me not to go. And she forced me up there, and I did not sing. I just stood there in the middle of her big, 12-week performance, not singing. And it was all because she was always rude to me, and because she stole gym class from me, and all this other stuff. And it was like, yeah, it's childish, but she was also just a bad person. I'm calling you out, Mrs. Dunges.
Dunges?
Dunges, they always called her Mrs. D, but it was Dunges.
You want people to be able to go find her on Facebook and write a nasty letter.
Yeah, I want you to go and be like, you were a terrible teacher. You 35 years and you never learned how to be a good teacher. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're terrible.
You're the reason we have Pearson Education.
Yeah, pretty much. Pearson Education exists because of you and your bad music teaching. And don't make kids do, we had to do 2 musicals a year under her. We had to do the Christmas program, and we had to do the, whatever musical she just pulled out of her ass. I hate musicals so goddamn much.
We did some music, we did some plays when I was in high school. We did some...
Yeah, but if you're in high school, you get to pick it. It's not you as a 5th grader being forced into it.
Fair enough. The 5th graders in our school, I think, were asked to sing. They didn't do as much. But in high school, and I think our junior high guys as well, had to, I think the junior high had it optional, and the high school was mandatory to be in choir. And we sung some cool stuff. I did not hate that, Tony. I
actually gave it a second chance in high school because you had to pick one music course to try out, to get the required credits to graduate. And the only one I could do because I didn't pick an instrument was to do a choir class, and they rated me as a bass, and I just went up there and I was able to do a little bit of it, but there wasn't any one-on-one stuff, so I never learned how to actually hit notes or anything like that. So I felt as far as singing and things like that go, you guys heard me on the dirt block, I don't know how to hit notes, period. I just don't. So, I'm just musically deficient in all those categories, and I feel I could have actually had a love for it because in, my first music teacher, 1st through 4th grade, I actually really enjoyed a lot of that stuff.
I think you're making it harder than it needs to. People just sing sometimes, Tony.
Yeah, but I want to, if I'm going to do it, I don't want to be, just doing terribly. Like, I feel like there has to be some sort of competence if you're going to sing, and that's why people annoy me whenever it's like, you shouldn't be allowed to sing with how bad you are. Like,
Is
at
that
least
what you think about me, Tony? I'm
No,
sorry.
you know how to sing. Like,
You get
it's
annoyed
just
whenever I'm saying, shut up, you shouldn't be allowed to sing anymore.
No, you know how to sing, and that's part of the problem is that, like, you know how, so you've got, like, a little bit more powerful voice, and you can actually hit notes. It's more the song choices you pick that bother me.
Oh, okay.
So
I got you.
And I know you're mostly trolling with that, so it's like, or you're just having fun, and, like, I'm trying not to get too angry with it. It's just every once in a while, at 8 in the morning, whenever you're singing right off the bat, I'm just like, I have not had enough coffee to deal with you right now.
That's also a difference, and I'm very much more of a morning person than you, like, by a lot.
Yeah. Like, morning is whenever I wake up, like, sore for 3 hours and, like, hobbling around. And, like, morning for you is like, oh, look at these birds singing in the blue skies, and just everything is awesome. Like you wake up with, like, the everything is awesome thing playing in your head, and I'm just like, I need, like, 4 more hours of sleep. Leave me alone.
My kids have started singing, and it's really great. They've actually got that It's Raining Tacos, and there's a bunch of so if you guys watch our Beam streams, there's a button that you can push underneath the Beam window that says It's Rain, and it'll play this Raining Tacos song. And the kids have listened to that and many other songs from that album, and they have started picking up on the different ones. And AJ's actually getting pretty good at singing. Like,
That's cool.
You know, it starts out, well, they'll just sort of say the words to the songs, but he's really, like, hitting the notes now. And him and Jack are just getting in on the music thing. And I learned today he's
Boogie Hedgehog. That one's my favorite.
Boogie Hedgehog, Boogie Hedgehog. A great song. But I learned that he is, like, one of the best in his class at identifying rhyming words, not only by sound but by visual. And I have to think a little bit of that is because of all the music stuff that we expose them to.
Probably. Like, you've got him, like, in that mindset where it's just gonna be like, this fits with this fits with this. Like, should get him into some freestyle hip hop sometime and listen to how they do it.
Maybe. That might be a little strong for me.
Well, there's a lot of the hip hop I listen to is a lot more closer to poetry than it is to, like, just talking yourself up and dropping, like, nasty language. Like, I could show you some things that I think you would like, that you would honestly like from, like, a lyrical and all that perspective. Like, it's a little bit closer to spoken word.
Okay.
Like, so maybe I'll try to find some that's a little more PG rated for you.
The other, I do want to mention, I know we're running a little bit late, but the other cool thing on the parenting front for me that I got to tell you guys about, I got to read AJ a chapter book all the way through. Like, he kept asking for it. We read Captain Underpants and The Wicked Wedgie Woman.
The Wicked Wedgie Woman.
Yes. It was great. First of all, those books are amazing. And he stuck with it. He was like, what's the next chapter? Can we read the next chapter, Daddy? And when we got to the end yesterday, I think we finished up the last of it yesterday. He's like, where's the next book, Daddy? Where's another book? And I was like, yes, I get to read to my kid. Hopefully he'll like something a little bit denser going forward. But I mean, it's a great start. He's always liked me to read to him, but this is the first time where it's been like a longer, more drawn out story that he wanted to keep coming back to.
Well, like, it just shows a lot of good things. It's like, you got good attention span, you got taste. I know those books wouldn't be for me or anything. They're just fun kids' books, but it's like,
they have good
it's
jokes.
awesome to see it. Yeah.
Some really good meta jokes. Like, there's one point where the kids are playing baseball or something, and there's, like, robot versions of the two main protagonists, and they hit the ball, and the ball goes, like, and punches the hole in the page. It's like, the ball flew right out of punched the hole right in page 101 and flew right out of the book. They do a lot of meta stuff like that, which is really great.
Yeah.
But that, I think, will do it for this week's episode. Thanks so much to everybody for watching and listening and however you consumed it. We really appreciate it. Next week, we will be watching The Prestige, which is on Netflix, the Christopher Nolan flick, which we have discussed many times before, but we'll get deep and nitty-gritty with it on our review next week. If you like the podcast and you want to help support us, please go to humanechoes.com and click the Become a Member link. Members get access to awesome stuff like the bonus podcast, which we're going to be recording in a couple days here, a new episode. Those are about an hour long, and it's me, Tony, and Joe just having a blast. Those are fun. Those are informative. And I think that y'all really enjoyed that. You also get early access to Kerbal Space Race, the current Let's Play that I'm editing, and lots of other really great stuff. And most importantly, you help support the cool stuff that we're able to make here. We couldn't do it without y'all, and we can do more if more of y'all support us.
Yep, and that is as little as $2 a month. So, like you're talking about, like McDonald's level coffee to support us and get access to. I believe we've got 40.
That's one day's coffee,
46.
by the way, or maybe two. McDonald's pretty cheap.
Yeah, like 46. Like we've got like some odd 40 episodes, like a bunch of hours. You can listen to all of them once you get access. And yeah, so we will talk to you guys soon. Look into becoming a member, support the things that you love, and we will talk to you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.